what is exactly Oozie, and why do we need something like Oozie, right? So that is the question that we have to answer. Right. So Oozie is in fact a workflow scheduler. So if you have heard about schedulers, then probably Oozie is one of them. So I'm quite sure that you could have worked on some scheduler like Control M, for example, which schedules the jobs. So there are two things you can do with Oozie. One thing is that you can, autosys, Control M, right? So one thing you can do with Oozie is that you can kind of like say that, hey, I need to schedule a job and it has to run at a particular time. So Oozie can do that for you. Or what you can do is that you can say that, hey, I have a job and this job has to finish and then another job has to start. So you can create a chain of jobs actually, like, one job finishes, then another job starts, so on and so forth, right? So basically these two things are possible with Oozie, but in fact, Oozie is mostly a tool for the administrator community, meaning when you are typically working in a project or something, what happens is that there'll be multiple developers or multiple people who are working in a project, and a lot of people would like to submit their MapReduce programs or Hive or Pig to the cluster. So what you do is that you don't really run the programs like we do here. You contact your administrator, okay, and then you will get an option to submit your job to Oozie, and your administrator will control when the job should run, how it should run, so on and so forth. And the point is that mostly in Hadoop, what you do is batch processing, right? You are not doing any kind of a real-time analysis in Hadoop. So what happens is that if I have to run a MapReduce program, I don't really care that it has to be real-time, right? Because it's just a batch job. So I will write a MapReduce code, then I will contact my administrator, and then I will say that, hey, I want to run this job. So probably my admin will say that you want to run it today or tomorrow. So I would say tomorrow is also fine with me. So he will say that, all right, you give me the all the jar file, your program, whatever the input data, so on and so forth, and I will schedule it for tomorrow. And the job runs the next day. It's not like the job is submitted directly. The job will be running in the next day or whenever it is planned. It is very rare that, in my experience, it is very rare that you directly run a job. Most of the organizations use Oozie, or if you are running Hortonworks platform, Hortonworks has a tool called Apache Falcon. Falcon basically runs on top of Oozie. Falcon actually uses Oozie. Falcon is also a scheduler. So, but we are learning Cloudera here. But if we were into Hortonworks, right? Or if you happen to be in a project where Hortonworks is there, you will see pretty much Hortonworks getting Hortonworks using Apache Falcon. Falcon is just another GUI based on top of Oozie, and a lot of people schedule their jobs using Falcon. Now, our aim is just to visualize how we can run at least a sample MapReduce program using Oozie, and that is what we will be doing. So the point is that we will try to run a MapReduce program using Oozie. Well, we will not be running the word count program, but we will be running another program. Well, that's fine. I mean, if it is word count or not, it's fine. Oozie cannot work with other tools as such. Oozie can work only on top of Hadoop. For example, it can work with Pig, Hive, these kind of Hadoop related, but it can support Java action. So if you're written a Java program, it can support it actually, right? Now the point is that Oozie has a GUI, Oozie doesn't have a GUI, but when you are using this Apache Hue, right? Remember Apache Hue? Apache Hue has a nice GUI. So if I have to show you this. So what I'm trying to demonstrate today is running an example, meaning what we will do, we will take a MapReduce program and try to run it using Oozie. We will ask Oozie to run the program for us. And what happens in running a program using Oozie is that Oozie is very careful with the status of the program. For example, if there is an error, it will kill the program. If everything works fine, the program is going to end. And how you can do this is that you can create really complex workflows using Oozie, which is not something you should know right now, but understand that you can have very complex workflows using Oozie. For example, if you look at this picture, what we have here is that you have a start button, and then so these these oval shapes which you see in blue color, such as start, kill, fork, join, these are all called control flow nodes, meaning they decide the control. They control the workflow in Oozie. And then we have action nodes. Action nodes are where actual programs execute. So when you design a very complex Oozie workflow, what happens is that you will have a start button or a start node, I can say, right? So once you have a start node, then you can have an action. For example, in this case, there is a MapReduce job. And if the MapReduce comes up with an error, then Oozie will kill the workflow. It will not proceed further at all. But if the MapReduce program runs successfully, it will go to the next stage called fork. Fork is a control flow. From fork, what you can do is that you can call multiple actions. So in this example, from the fork, I'm saying that I need a MapReduce action and a pick job. Probably I want to run both. Okay. So both will get executed. And once that is done, there is a join statement you have to write, meaning you have to ensure that both MapReduce and pick jobs are over. And then you can have decision nodes in Oozie. So decision nodes, you can check the output or a criteria, and if it is enough, you can go to the next step. Or if it is not enough, you can call one more action. So in this case, we can see if it is not enough, there is one more MapReduce job running. Then there is a Java action, and then there is a file system job, something like deleting a file, copying a file, something like that, and then the entire workflow will end. Oozie as such doesn't allow email notifications, but I think when you're using Cloudera, you can club it with your Cloudera manager. There is a tool called Cloudera Manager to get email notifications. Yes, it is possible. So this is how a workflow will look like. Okay. Now I think our VM is up. So if I do this, Cloudera. So I just logged into Hue, and in Hue you have Oozie, but this is complete GUI. So if I go to this workflows, you can have editors, and there is workflow editor. So you see here, this is the Oozie editor. And here what you can do, you can create a workflow. So you can say create, and then you can drag and drop. See what you can do. This is Hive, again Hive, Pig, Spark, Java program, Scoop, MapReduce job. So these are the things you can add. You can email. Okay, it is added here. I'm sorry. Email is added right now. I think in the latest edition of Oozie it comes. Yes, you can get an email action. So basically, if I want to run something, I have to add it here. So I can add a pig script here. Sorry. I can add a pig script here. Then it is going to ask me what is the path of the pig script on HDFS. So you need to copy the pig script here. And after that, what you do, you need to add the Hive script probably. Then it is going to ask me, oops, it's going to ask me where is the Hive script, where is the Hive XML file coming up. If you have a Spark action, you can add it here. It's going to ask, and if you have a MapReduce job, then you can add it here. So if you add a MapReduce job, it's going to ask me the jar name, where is the jar name, so on and so forth. So the workflow can be created like this, and this is just a GUI, which allows you to define the workflow. And I know that this looks easy, but this is not something which I want to show you. Okay, so let me do one thing. Let me just connect with the VM. 192.168.131, so that I can show you this from the command line. Okay, use system colors. Okay. Now let's say we want to submit a MapReduce job. So let's say we have written a MapReduce program and we want to execute it using Oozie. So there are a couple of things you need to remember. First thing, you need the jar file. Obviously, if you have created a MapReduce program, you need the jar file, right? So if I have the jar file, can I just ask Oozie to run my jar file? Not really, right? You need two more files. One file is called workflow.xml. The third file is called a job.properties file. So you have to create this workflow.xml and job.properties file if you have to submit any job to Oozie. So fortunately, in your Cloudera VM, Oozie is already installed and Oozie is actually running. So we do have Oozie. I believe we have Oozie because I just restarted this box. Hopefully Oozie is running anyway, right? And my idea is that I have written a MapReduce program and then I want to submit it to Oozie, right? So in order to do that, first I need a jar file. Now what program I have written? I have written a program which will basically count the character position of every line. So if you give a text file with say 100 lines, my MapReduce program will analyze each line. It is gonna tell me the position of the first character, the character position. That is the program. Well, I have not written this program. This program is written by Cloudera actually. Now the good news is that the Cloudera VM actually comes with a lot of sample programs which you can use along with Oozie. And if you are building an Oozie program from scratch, then you need to have this workflow.xml and job.properties. But Cloudera VM also comes with this sample workflow and job file, so we can use it, right? So let me show you what you need to do if you're having the Cloudera VM in order to run these programs, right? So we have already, connected with the VM. So what you need to do is, if you're having the Cloudera VM, if I go to this location, cd usr share doc Oozie, if you go to this location, there is a file called Oozie examples.tar.gz. Okay, so this is there in the Cloudera VM, right? And this particular zip file contains a lot of examples for Oozie. Okay, so that you don't have to create one from scratch. So I'm going to show you one of such examples, which is a MapReduce program. So if you want to try this, what you need to do is you have to copy this zip file from this location. It's usr share doc Oozie. and then paste it somewhere. So what I have done, I have copied it to my home directory. Here is the file, Oozie examples.tar.gz. And then I have unzipped the file, which is in this folder now. So there is a folder called Oozie, and that folder has all the data in this Oozie examples zip file. So if I just go to Oozie folder and do an ls, well, this is optional. This I again copied in here, but there is a folder called examples. And if I go to this examples and if I do an ls, you will see something called apps, input data, source, so on and so forth. And if you navigate to this apps folder, here you have all the applications. For example, there is Java, Pig, Spark, then DistCP, Hive, Hive2, MapReduce, Scoop, all these things. So all these folders contain the respective examples to run in Oozie. For example, I want to know how to submit a Hive query to Oozie. So they have already built a Hive example. Well, we are not using the Hive example, but if I go here, there is a script, there is a README file, and here is a workflow.xml, here is a job.properties, so on and so forth. I think the README file should have something. No, it's just an option. Yeah. So if somebody want to run a Hive example, it is here, and this is possibly, yeah. So this is possibly the query that we are running, but we are not interested in running a Hive example. What we are interested is running a MapReduce example, right? So we are interested in this guy actually. Okay. Before that, let's look at this data. So if I go back one step, there is a folder called input data. If I go here, if I go to text, yeah. So this is basically the file we will be analyzing. There is a folder called text. Inside that, there is a file called data.txt. It is basically a text file. So this is the file we will be analyzing, right? So this is the text file. Fine. Now let's go back to the apps folder. Oops. Oh. CD apps MapReduce, right? So what is inside this MapReduce? First of all, there is a lib folder. So this is how you create an Oozie job. You need to have this structure. If I go to this lib folder and do an ls, here is my jar file. So this is the actual MapReduce program which I have written for counting the characters at the beginning of each line. So in the lib folder, I have the MapReduce program, or at least Cloudera has written the MapReduce program. Fine, we are okay with that, right? Now, what are the other things we have? We have a file called job.properties. Then we have a file called workflow.xml. So these are the two important files we need to have. So first, let's look at the workflow.xml file. So Oozie actually uses this workflow.xml file to understand what you're trying to do. So whatever you're doing, you have to define in this workflow.xml. And what we are going to do, we are going to run a MapReduce program, right? So if I do open this workflow.xml, this is how it looks like. Well, I don't have to worry about everything, but there are some things which you have to worry about. Okay. So this is called the start. Start means, every Oozie workflow should begin with a start control node. Okay. So we are saying that start this. Okay. And then we will say MR node. Okay. So this is just a name for our, workflow. Then we give the action name, that is also MR node. And then we will define what is the action we want to perform. So here it has to be map-reduce. This means we are going to run a MapReduce job. If I write pig here, Oozie will assume that I'm going to run a pig job. Okay. Now, if Oozie want to run a job, of course, you are not helping Oozie. Oozie has to run alone, right? Remember, in every Hadoop cluster, okay, can you tell me which component of yarn, which component of yarn will accept a program? If you submit a program to the cluster, which component of yarn will accept the program? If you're submitting a MapReduce program, who is going to accept the program? It is going to be your resource manager, not name node. See, name node comes in HDFS. Okay, name node has nothing to do with your what is a yarn property. So whenever you're submitting a program, it is handled by your yarn. And which component in yarn? Resource manager. Okay, which means Oozie should know, Oozie should understand that where is the resource manager running. Then only it can run the program for you, right? And the next thing Oozie should know is where is the name node running. Why it should understand about the name node? So that it can read the file and write the file, you know, read the input data and write the final result. So Oozie doesn't know any of these things. Okay. So what happens is that in the workflow.xml, if you look the workflow.xml, here are these details. So this job tracker is actually Hadoop 1. Okay, they have not changed the name. It is actually resource manager. Name node is name node. For job tracker, why I have written something like this? What does this mean? Or for name node, why did I write like this? What does this mean? It's a parameter that I'm passing, right? It's a parameter. See, I don't want to mention my name node IP address or port number here. I will mention it in another file and pass it as a parameter so that I can create a workflow and run it in multiple clusters. If I have to take this workflow to another cluster, I can do that because all I need to do is that. So here I'm simply saying that, you know, I'm using a variable called name node and I will provide the value of this variable later. Okay. Then this is the prepare stage. This is optional. Okay. So this prepare stage is optional. So the name is actually, this is just your metadata, you know. So the name just, this is the entire name of your workflow, MapReduce WF. Okay. This is the start node name. This is the action name. This is the entire name of your workflow, MapReduce WF. Okay. Now this part is optional. This part is optional. Okay, this is the delete path. So remember in MapReduce programs, when you're running a MapReduce program, the output folder should not exist in Hadoop, right? The program will fail if the output folder is already existing in Hadoop. You can optionally delete the output folder if it is already present. That is what I'm doing here. But how am I deleting the output folder? Again, I'm passing parameters. I'm saying that, you know, on my Hadoop, there will be a user directory and use the current user. So this will translate to user/Cloudera. And then I'm saying that examples root, again a parameter. So you can pass a parameter for folder name here. And then there is a folder called output data, and then again a parameter output directory. So basically, I'm passing parameters to define my output directory. After this, what you do is there is something called queue name, which you don't have to worry right now. Okay, and here you mention the mapper class. Here there is the reducer class. Okay, and then you have the input directory, output directory. Okay, and last it says OK to end, error to fail, which means if the program runs successfully, it will end it. If it is error, it will fail. And then if it is failing, it will drop this message saying that some error will come and it will kill the program. So basically, this is how you define your workflow.xml. Now, if you look at this job.properties file, this is where you are mentioning the parameters. See, we are calling this name node job tracker in the workflow, right? I'm actually giving the location here. Name node is localhost 8020. So this is where my name node is running. Resource manager is running in localhost 8032. Queue name is default. Example root is examples, meaning I'm saying that the folder name is called examples. Output directory is called MapReduce. So the point is, once you have all these things, you have your jar file, you have defined your workflow.xml, you have also defined your job.properties. What you should do? You should copy all this to Hadoop. Let me show you that. If I go to Hadoop, if I go to user Cloudera, there is a, check, there should be one folder called examples. See, there is a folder called examples, and in this folder, what do we have? Input data, text, and this is the file we are analyzing. Okay, fine. Then output data, MapReduce. This is the output. So I'll probably delete this. What do you say? Result, so that we have some fresh result. Move to trash. Yes. Okay. So this is the input data is here. Output data. I want the result to be stored in this, and I have also copied this apps MapReduce in here. This thing is copied here. This job.properties, workflow.xml, all this is copied here. Okay. So everything looks fine. Now, how do you submit this to Oozie? It's actually very simple. If you want to submit this to Oozie, all you need to do is you simply say, so let me see where I am. All you need to do is that you simply say, hey, Oozie, okay, job, which means I want to run an Oozie job. Then you say Oozie, and you will say that where Oozie is running. So Oozie typically runs through port number 11,000. So you will say Oozie job Oozie http localhost colon 11,000 / Oozie. That is the URL for Oozie. And then you say the configuration files are in examples, apps, MapReduce, job.properties, and you will say run. Oops, what happened? Something missing. Let me check. What did I do? Oozie job, that's correct. Then I'm saying -Oozie. Okay, fine. Did I mention the URL? Localhost 11,000 / Oozie. Then I say -config. Where is the config? Example. -run. Sorry. -run. So this will say that the job is submitted. Now, if you want to see the job, just go to this place, wherever you have. Then you say 11,000 Oozie. And if I open in here, there is a job running. If I double click here, this is the Oozie job. Okay. Well, you can see that this is the job information. The name is MapReduce workflow. And it is in the status of running right now. You can see the start node is here. Okay, so the start node, right? And the action configuration, nothing. And this is the MR node. So this is the MapReduce action we are running. Then here you can see the job definition. So this is what your workflow.xml looks like. And then you have the job configuration, the job logs any, the job DAG, basically the directed acyclic graph. And if I do a refresh, the status is succeeded. Job is over. If I come back here, if I refresh, it has moved to the completed jobs, actually, right? So basically, you can check the status in the web console for Oozie. So that's basically what Oozie does.
I'm sure you enjoyed learning from this video. Please like the video, and if you have any doubts regarding this video, please comment us in the comment section, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more such informative videos. Do look out for other related videos in our playlist. For more information, visit our website now. Keep learning with Intellipaat.